here with Brad, who is Brad Garlinghouse, CEO of Ripple. Thank you.
Glad to be here. CEO person.
Yeah, so yeah, Ripple is a point of interest for me. And I don't know who's in this room. I know this conference has been going on a long time, and many people are returning to this, but I have been covering this space for 10 years, so I know that there are always a lot of newcomers here. Ripple has been around for a very long time in crypto industry terms. It is a payments company, a very global payments company, closely tied to the XRP coin, which you can get a little bit into, which is of course one of the biggest by market cap. A lot of attention recently because of the SEC's lawsuit against you.
I heard about it.
A partial victory in last year, a partial victory, but kind of a landmark victory for the industry. Are there any updates on that you want to address before we move on?
Yes. We won't spend all of our time having been up on this stage in previous years. It's always been a topic. So as I was referencing, the key part of the case the SEC sued us is kind of what is XRP, their allegation being that XRP is a security. The judge ruled last summer that XRP, quote, in and of itself is not a security. The SEC announced about around 2 weeks ago that they're appealing, but what I think is misunderstood is they're not actually appealing that part of the decision. So for us, like the biggest win, and as you described, the landmark part of the win is really the SEC is trying to take the position that a token can, in and of itself, be a security. And the courts have consistently ruled that that is not the case. And in the appeal, what they're really appealing is this idea around programmatic trades, programmatic sales, as to whether or not that represents an investment contract. And the idea being that if it's a programmatic trade, it's anonymous buyer, anonymous seller, that there can't be a contract there. Their contention is there can be. So, look, as you go up the appellate courts, it gets harder and harder, I think, for the SEC. We're very optimistic about where we stand on this. And again, the good news is, no matter what, XRP, the law of the land is XRP is not a security. But one last thing I'll say about this, like we were talking about backstage, I think is super frustrating, a little bit, mind-numbing, is the SEC going to litigate every token? We have clarity that Bitcoin's not a security. They've been a little nuanced about ETH. I guess now they're saying it's not. Well, first they said it's not, then they said maybe it is. They're going to Wells notice, and now they're saying it's not. XRP, a federal judge has said it's not. But everything else is kind of still up for grabs. We even have the head of enforcement of the SEC who left about 2 weeks ago. After he left, contradicted what Gensler is saying and saying, like, we need legislation, we need clarity. And I think the good news is there appears to be momentum. The FIT 21 Act passing the House this summer in a bipartisan way. There appears to be some momentum around that, so maybe we'll get that sometime soon.
And then as you mentioned at the top, of course, earlier this month, the agency did appeal part of that decision. So is there anything, any updates there?
I mean, nothing, that will progress and take, call it a year to kind of go through the system. That I think it'll be interesting. The filing work that they'll have to do kind of comes out in January. By then, of course, we'll know if there's what the presidential election yields. It'll be interesting to see if there's a shift, and they could abandon that appeal. They could continue with it. I think, and I was in many federal courts have agreed that the SEC's war and kind of Gensler's reign of terror on crypto has been misguided. And I think they've gotten kind of smacked down by several courts with language. I mean, in our case, it was, quoting the judge as saying this, that the SEC has failed to follow a faithful allegiance to the law. In another case, they described the SEC as it relates to this is the grayscale case as being arbitrary and capricious. I think many in the industry have asked for many years, we want to follow the rules. We need to have clarity about what the rules are. And the SEC has changed the rules. Their own interpretation of the rules have changed at times. And, anyway, it's frustrating. I've already said many things about this. I will say many more, I'm sure.
Well, thank you. With that out of the way, I just want to back up a little bit. So, like I said, Ripple has been around a long time. I wonder if you could just reintroduce the company to people in the room and anyone watching on live stream. I think that people hear Ripple sometimes and make an automatic association with XRP. Can you just reintroduce the company?
Sure.
Say what Ripple does and what its place is in the U.S. Fintech.
So Ripple's vision from the earliest days, this even predates me, Chris Larson, co-founder of the company, really articulated this vision for enabling an internet of value, to allow value to move the way information moves today. And so, how do you catalyze that vision? And Ripple started by focusing on the payments industry. And if you kind of dissect the payments industry, you go to where's the highest point of friction. Cross-border payments are the highest point of friction. Cross-border payments today are kind of, largely speaking, built on the SWIFT ecosystem, which is slow, it's expensive, it was architected 50 years ago. The error rate is quite high. And it's kind of like in an age of the internet, why can't we have something better? And so we have been working with banks and financial institutions around the world to 95% of our customers are non-US financial institutions, which is partly a reflection of the US SEC dynamic, but we continue to focus on that kind of infrastructure layer. We had demand from our customers. We acquired a company about a year ago in the enterprise custody, and so we counsel the largest banks in the world using our custody technology. But we are not a consumer company. We are an enterprise infrastructure company around kind of all things blockchain, and we intend to kind of stay at that level. As you introduced, XRP is part of our technology stack, and we have always had a kind of vested interest in catalyzing and investing in and seeing the XRP ecosystem thrive. We think, I am definitely not one that I would call a maximalist around crypto. I've shared before, I own Bitcoin, I own ETH, I own XRP. I think there's going to be a multi-chain world. XRP is exceptionally good at payments. It's very, very fast on a per transaction basis, and it's very, very low cost on a per transaction basis. It scales much better than some of the other layer one chains.
How does price action in XRP affect your business, if at all?
It turns out it doesn't really. If you do the math, and we have a whole white paper we published on this, but if you look at the volatility of a low volatile asset like a fiat currency, but you hold it for, let's say, 3 or 4 days to settle a SWIFT transaction, it turns out you have more volatility risk in a low volatile asset as compared to an XRP transaction because it's a highly volatile asset, but it's very, very fast to transact. So it turns out there's less volatility risk. Now, in the traditional fiat world, when you go to a bank to wire money, someone's hedging that currency risk for 3 or 4 days, and you're paying for that currency risk. You're locking in a rate in advance. You don't have to do that in the crypto world because it's so much faster. If the volatility gets, say, got much, much, much worse, you could have a situation where you could have new participants in the market emerge to kind of sell that product.
So you mentioned just now that most of your business takes place outside of the US. You can introduce the company. How do you view Ripple's role in helping shape fair fintech regulation here?
You've heard of fair shake. Well, the introduction of the word fair. So Ripple is one of the companies that is behind a super PAC called Fair Shake. It's one of the largest PACs in this election cycle. Although we have indicated, and I think the other, Coinbase has been active in Fair Shake as well as Andreessen Horowitz. We're kind of the 3 anchor. There's been a few other supporters as well. But I use the word fair. All that we're looking for is a fair shake. There's a lot of misinformation, and frankly, I don't mind saying it. Look, Elizabeth Warren is out there spreading misinformation and lies about crypto. She will tell you that all crypto activity is illicit activity. The facts do not bear that out. And so all we have asked for is a fair shake. I think crypto should be bipartisan, and the Fair Shake Super PAC supports people on the R and D side. It's been important to me. It's not a coincidence I'm wearing a purple tie today. So we have been very active because we haven't had those clear rules on the road, and I think no matter what happens in a few weeks here, we will have a more pro-innovation, pro-crypto Congress that gets elected.
What have your conversations in DC been like? Even before election season, how engaged with regulators have you been? You've been around for a long time, so what are those conversations like? No, saying Ripple is
original
pillar.
Yeah. Pillar, I like that. I've made far more trips to DC in the past few years than I did the few years before that. And by the way, I look back on that and I regret that. I think we made a mistake by not leaning in earlier, and we're trying to make up for lost time to some degree.
Learning in house.
Well, part of it is just education, right? It's showing up here, and look, I'll speak freely in a very private audience. You know, it doesn't help that you had Sam Bankman-Fried showing up on Capitol Hill with cargo shorts and, you know, like selling something that turned out not to be exactly what was represented. That hurt the whole industry. That hurt Ripple. And so kind of counteracting that and showing up and representing that, look, we are serious people. There's a lot of people in crypto, a lot of them on stage during this event. There's serious people doing serious things, and the market obviously has grown a lot. And so when I show up here, part of it is evangelist, advocate, diplomat, ambassador. And you know, I will also comment, you and I talked about this a little bit backstage, but it's still interesting to me how the U.S. is behind other countries. I spend a significant amount of my time talking to central banks and regulators around the world. And whether we're talking about Japan or the UK or Singapore or the UAE or Switzerland, even Brazil. No, that's not even Brazil's bad, it's just including Brazil. You know, the US is a laggard. And for reasons that don't really make sense, I think it does get back to this kind of misinformation that has been, you know, I think the Gensler reign of terror, you know, mixed with Elizabeth Warren, you know, spreading misinformation that crypto is the boogeyman. And it's just not the case. And so I think it's important for the industry to show up at events like this and make sure people understand how these technologies, at their core, can be used to benefit citizenry, to use to benefit businesses, reducing costs, increasing speed. And, you know, I truly do believe blockchain is going to rewire lots of parts of the financial ecosystem. Ripple's focused on our piece within that, but you know, I'm excited to see lots of other companies here represented.
So you do business all around the world. You understand the rules of the road in those jurisdictions because they are clear and because you put in the time. So is there anything that you've learned from abroad that could be applied here?
Oh, sure. I mean, you know, look, let's use the UK. The UK was early in coming up with a kind of taxonomy of how they define different tokens. Certainly in Japan. I mean, look, I just think the US, for whatever reason, this SEC has failed to do the work. Like, you know, I remember early in Gensler's tenure, he went out and hired a whole bunch more litigators. If only he had used those budget dollars to hire some people to codify and write down and work with Congress to legislate, hey, this is new and it is a little bit different. The Howey test, as much as you can try to twist it into knots or branches of a tree, orange tree, like, it just doesn't quite fit. So that's okay. Let's sit down. Let's write rules. Let's not try to act like no, we have the rules we need. Gensler goes and testifies before Congress that we have the rules we need, and you know the crypto community just won't follow them. Well, the good news is the courts don't agree. Now that's slow. It's frustrating. And back to what I said earlier, do we really want to go litigate every token? And that appears to be how Gensler's. It's like, hey, maybe it's a power. Trying to get more power. I don't really get it. It doesn't feel destructive. It doesn't feel like he's working for the U.S. citizens.
All right, so we're closing out this election here in a couple of weeks. Can you say what exactly is at stake here for crypto? And I talked about this backstage too, but it seems like we're an industry that has always said it's nonpartisan and has evidence of growing bipartisan support in Congress. The vibe seems to be throughout election season increasingly partisan. Do you agree that Trump would be very, very good for crypto and Harris would be very, very bad for crypto? What exactly is at stake, come November 5th, and is it as dire as it may have to be done?
Look, I do believe this is the most important election since I've been for a long time, pointed out a few times. I think this is the most important election we've had, but I also believe no matter what happens, we're going to have a more pro-crypto, more pro-innovation Congress than we've ever had. I think no matter what happens, we're going to leave behind a failed approach from the Biden administration. It has been an attack, and it isn't just the SEC. The OCC is hostile towards crypto. The Treasury is hostile towards crypto. The idea that people say choke point 2.0, just to define that, choke point 1.0 was this idea of the banking industry. It was debanking a industry around payday lending and these things. It wasn't legal. Actually, it lost court cases later on. But choke point 2.0 is the crypto industry and individuals within the crypto industry I personally have been debanked. I got a call not that long ago from one of the major banking institutions I've had an account with for 25 years, and they said you have 5 days to move your money. Why? And they were actually super honest. They're like, look, you are a notable person in crypto, and having notable people in crypto and banking the crypto industry means more scrutiny from federal regulators. So we don't want it. Now, that's not legal, but it's also like, okay, fine. There's other banks that will bank me. But imagine if you extrapolate that out, more bank that if I actually was cut off the banking system for the sole reason I'm the CEO of Ripple. That is a hostile administration, and I think no matter what happens in this next election, we will have a reset. We can debate the magnitude of that reset, and there's lots of disagreement about that. Obviously, Trump came out early and very aggressively in a pro-crypto and said he's the crypto president. Kamala and Team Harris have been more nuanced. This week, I think it was this week, they had some most constructive things they have said publicly. But it's like, I do think, Kamala Harris is from Silicon Valley. I think she has generally been pro-technology over the years. She has been relatively quiet on the topic, but I think no matter what happens, we're going to see a reset. We're going to see forward progress, and I'm certainly looking forward to that.
So you are wearing a purple tie, so you're not here to make any endorsements?
I did endorse John Dean yesterday. I've already given money to him, so, but look, Elizabeth Warren, I think, has been the most destructive towards this. I mean, she has a webpage on her campaign that says, I'm building a anti-crypto army. It's like, okay, I'm against the technology. I made the joke before, like, why would somebody be against the technology? It's like saying, I'm against email, but you're for email. That doesn't make sense. Like, you can say, I'm against how crypto is being used, or I'm against something. Like, to be against the technology, like, technology is inherently just neutral technologies that can be used in lots of different ways. So I don't get that, and I think that the citizens of Massachusetts deserve better than somebody who, by the way, she won't take meetings with the industry either. Like, at least learn, at least be willing to engage and have a dialogue. So I think we all, as citizens of the United States, deserve better.
And what would you tell whoever becomes the next president would be sort of step one in healing the crypto industry?
I think that the key will be, who are the people they appoint into various places. And again, I don't think you can do worse than Gary Gensler. I think he's that bad for the industry. I don't think he's playing fair by the rules. I think he's been disingenuous with the industry. I can't say enough negative. But so, look, I think the key indication will be who gets appointed to run the OCC, who gets appointed to run Treasury and some of the key positions in Treasury, who's going to be appointed to run the CFTC and the SEC, and it'll be telling as to what the direction of travel is for the next 4 years. But I'll really emphasize, anybody who doesn't believe no matter what we're going to end up in a better place, I think is not paying attention. I also, a guy who I really respect in the crypto industry, Dan Moorhead, one of the things he said to me, he runs a group called Pantera Capital, and you think I'm old in crypto. Like
I don't think you're old in crypto.
He's ancient. That's how I said that. But one of the things he has said, and I really agree with it, is when we look back on this period of time in the United States as it relates to crypto, it's going to look like a speed bump. The inevitable march of crypto and blockchain technologies is going to continue. And 10 years, when we look back on what how the U.S. got it wrong for years and years and years, and why we got it wrong, it's going to be a speed bump. And this industry is going to continue to thrive. I truly think it's inevitable.
Positive note to end on. We're not ending the session, but I am just the subject. I want to ask about your stablecoin. Ripple USD launching soon. Good. Why? Why now? It's such a hot topic right now, and it is interesting with the rate cutting cycle and with the state of regulation in the U.S. and the upcoming election. So why and why now, and what is it designed to do, compared to some of the more dominant ones in the market?
Well, so a couple factors. One, as you introduced earlier, at its core, Ripple is a payments company. It's where we started. And we've been using stablecoins in some of our payment flows for years. there was a period of time where we were actually responsible for minting 20% of all USDC. And so we kind of stepped back and looked at that, and we're like, okay, wait a minute, particularly, by the way, when USDC about 18 months ago depegged by about 7 or 8%. And we kind of started to ask ourselves, like, well, wait a minute, should we participate in this market given, I think all of these things are driven by utility, like solving real problems. If it's just speculation, I don't think that's a long-term success story. So when we got interested and started paying attention, the two other macro factors I'd point out, I really do believe today the stablecoin market's about $160 or $170 billion. Some smart people think that's going to be a lot bigger in 5 or 10 years, measured in trillions. So, it's like 10 to 20x as large. And so there's a lot of growth there. And so I think that, for us playing at the enterprise level, institutional level, and the payment flows, there's a natural opportunity to do so. And so I think as the market grows, there's an opportunity for us to enter that market. The last thing I'll say, which relates to our previous, I know we left the earlier conversation, but just briefly, the largest stablecoin out there is Tether. And Tether actually has a really good track record of being a stable coin. I mean, it's pretty, its volatility away from the dollar has been better than almost anything. But Tether also has gone out of the way to be offshore, non-US, and I think that has made it unfriendly for US regulators. And I think as the market grows, and you have the uncertainty of the largest player having 70%-ish of the market, I think that may shift a little bit, and I think that the market overall is going to grow, and so we feel like there's an opportunity for Ripple to enter that market.
Do you intend to go up against each other for USDC?
Look, I truly mean, I think this is a huge market, and there's going to be lots of competition. I debate we continue to use USDC or USDT in certain payment flows, but inherently, if we're launching stablecoin, I'd be disingenuous to not say, are we going up against it? Yeah, I mean, there's a new stablecoin, and inherently we're competing. But I don't look at it as, I think Tether is not going away. USDC is not going away, and I think USDC has been quite successful as being transparent and regulated, and really trying to be a leading light as a regulated player. And so I think they both will continue to succeed. But again, I think it's a big market. I think we can take some share, and for our use case, and focus on that.
How, if at all, does that change your U.S. presence? It'll be dollar-backed. Are you engaging with regulators on this?
Yes. So we acquired a company, I can't remember when it closed, but called Standard Custody, which has a trust, NYDFS trust license. We're in the process. We won't go live until we get the green light to do so under the trust license. But we are already operationally ready. We've done lots of operational testing with a whole bunch of launch partners, including exchanges and market makers. And so we're excited about the early momentum, even though we're not live. But the key, you asked when we're going to go live. We will go live as soon as we work with regulators. We will only do kind of front-footed compliance, regulatorily appropriate things. There are good rules of the road on this one. So let's follow the rules of the road. And so when we get the green light from the regulators and our kind of licensee, got that right, we will go live with it.
And I asked this before, forgive me if I missed it, but because you are not a consumer-facing company, use cases, stablecoins are exploding right now. So they are mostly used for trading. We are starting to see that other use cases for stablecoins are emerging in popularity. What would the purpose of RLUSD be?
Well, so it goes back to, we're already serving lots of institutional enterprise clients. I used the data point, which happens to be 20% of all USDC minting for a period of time. And so it kind of felt like, wait a minute, like we could play in this market. The thing I also, Operation Choke Point plays into the growth of stablecoins, because it's the on-ramps and off-ramps that are a problem for a lot of crypto players. And because the US government has been so hostile, and their, by extension, banks have generally been hesitant to bank the crypto industry, you have this problem around on-ramps and off-ramps, and stablecoins serve part of that solution to manage those on-ramps and off-ramps.
I was actually just going to ask, closures of Silver Bank and Signature last year, how much do you think that's affected this explosion of stablecoin popularity now?
For sure, it has impacted. I mean, just to put some color on that, so we're on the same page. Silvergate was shut down by the government in part because they told them they could only bank. This is not me making this up. This is in court filings. You can go read about it. They said basically, we won't allow you to have more than 15% of your business in crypto companies. And that basically meant they couldn't be solvent, given that they're a big customer base, and so they had to shut down. So the U.S. government kind of forced Silvergate as a banking crypto companies to shut down. I believe there will be lawsuits about that before it's all said and done. But there's no doubt that the fact that when you had a pullback from banks that were serving this industry, it fueled the demand and an increase in activity around stablecoins. You could see the path around that. Some of those things happening. Now, there was also a shift in market share. And the ironies of the U.S. government doing things that isn't, it's just like, you guys got to think through this. So you debank the U.S. industry, so what happens? USDC, which is more regulated, more compliant, its market share goes down. Tether's market share goes up. And Tether, so we're pushing activity offshore. So we're pushing activity to less regulated and less, in all the kind of things that the U.S. says they want to protect consumers, what happens when we're doing things that push them offshore. Like, that's smart.
We are coming up on time, so to cap it off, thank you for all of your insight. Your advice to fintech startups at this point in time, in this precarious regulatory environment, which you say is only getting better regardless of what happens in the next few weeks, what is your advice?
Incorporate outside the United States. Look, I hate saying that. Look, I'll be honest with you guys. I grew up in Kansas. I'm a pro-US guy. But look, if I'm honestly giving advice to an entrepreneur who wants to meet with me and talk about a fintech crypto-related company, you don't know what to do. You could hire the best lawyers, the most expensive lawyers, and spend a shit ton of money, and you still don't know whether or not the SEC is going to sue you. And if you go to the UK and incorporate in London, you know what the rules of the road are. You have a welcome and a constructive engagement with the central bank. It's just apples and oranges. I was just in Japan. We were talking about this. The welcome reception, the warm reception Ripple gets in going to Japan versus here. It is changing. And look, there's people on both sides of the aisle that see this and understand it and are fighting hard to change it. But I feel resolute. The Biden administration's approach to crypto, when we look back on this, we will realize that we did the United States a disservice to the key technology that we should care about over the long term.
Give it up for Brad Garlinghouse.